This was an amazing read. I disliked this book so much. It's very spicy. This is the most misleading from the summary, let me tell you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is the second year that we will be doing this video. I did do a video on my channel last year about books that I've read / what I wanted to read this year. Last year it really launched into me getting back into reading leisurely. Honestly, when I was in college / high school, I felt like you had to read so much just for school, and I got an accounting degree, so as you can imagine, reading accounting wasn't the most exciting. As I'm wearing this hat, you guys are probably like, what a nerd. That really deterred me from reading for a while. But since then I've started reading, and I've also joined Book of the Month Club. It's just called Book of the Month. I always call it Book of the Month Club, but Book of the Month, I've really enjoyed it. It's gotten me back into reading. Let's just jump right in on what I have read this year. So my goal this year was to read, I think 20 books is what I put in my resolution. I read 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. Wow, okay, I'm actually at 18 and I'm actually in the process of reading 2 books right now. I'm filming this on December 13th, so if I can finish this before year end, I will have reached my goal, which this was a great check-in because honestly, I thought I read more than that unless I'm forgetting books, but this helps me, you know, kind of take note. The only thing I don't like about this video is I'm not good at reading out loud. I don't know what it is, but I like start getting tongue-tied and don't pronounce things correctly. It's like, I don't know, when you get nervous that you get called on for like popcorn reading in school. That's how I am. All right, so book number 1 was the Magnolia Palace. I really enjoyed this. It's historical fiction. 8 months since losing her mother to the Spanish flu outbreak in 1919, 21-year-old Lillian Carter's life has completely fallen apart. Lillian was one of the most sought out artist models in New York City, with statues based on her figure gracing landmarks from the Plaza Hotel to the Brooklyn Bridge. The work has dried up and looming scandal has left her entirely without a safe haven, so when she stumbles upon an employment opportunity at the Frick Mansion, Lillian jumps at the chance, but the longer she works as a private secretary to the imperious and demanding Helen Frick, the daughter and heiress of industrial and art patron Henry Clay Frick, the more deeply her life gets intertwined with that of the family, pulling her to a tangled web of romantic tryst, stolen jewels, and family drama that runs so deep the stakes may just be life or death. This was an amazing read. I say you have to be into historical fiction, but not really, but I think this is based on a true family. I guess they did have a house with a ton of artwork in New York, and then they donated the mansion to the city with all the artwork in it. But yeah, super good read. Lots of twists and turns, very different than what I usually read, so I do recommend this book. We'll jump to this one next. This is The Cartographers. This was a really cool book. This is another one that I think is very different. Usually I gravitate towards romance books, but I've kind of steered differently this year. Neil Young's whole life and greatest passion is cartography. Her father, Dr. Daniel Young, is a legend in the field and Nell's personal hero, but she hasn't seen or spoken to him ever since he cruelly fired her and destroyed her reputation after an argument over an old cheap gas station highway map. But when Dr. Young is found dead in his office at the New York Public Library with the very same seemingly worthless map hidden in his desk, Nell can't resist investigating. To her surprise, she soon discovers that the map is incredibly valuable and exceedingly rare. In fact, she may now have the only copy left in existence, because a mysterious collector has been hunting down and destroying every last one, along with anyone who gets in the way. But why? To answer the question, Nell embarks on a dangerous journey to reveal a dark family secret and discovers the true power that lies in maps. This is a super cool book. It keeps you on your toes. It's very entertaining. My only concern, and maybe it's just I didn't fully understand all of it, but I did feel like there were a couple, not plot holes, but just like questions I had about, I'm not going to spoil anything, but questions I had about what's going on in the background that weren't answered. That's my only disclaimer there, but maybe if you read this you'll catch on more than me. Also, if you guys are like, stop reading the summaries, I just feel like because it's the summary, it's the perfect amount of info to give you without spoiling a book, because hopefully some of you guys will find these interesting and you'll want to read them. Book 3 is The Lost Apothecary. This was like a finalist for the 2021 books. This was amazing. Again, this is historical fiction, but this one's super cool. Hidden in the depths of 18th century London, a secret apothecary shop caters to the unusual kind of clientele. Women across the city whisper of a mysterious figure named Nella who sells well-disguised poisons to use against the oppressive men in their lives. Nella's dark world is no place for her newest patron, 12-year-old girl named Eliza Fanning, but their unexpected bond sparks a string of consequences that echoes through the centuries. 200 years later, aspiring historian Caroline Parswell discovers an aged apothecary vial in the River Thames as she is newly grappling with the searing betrayal of her husband's infidelity. A curious research project is exactly the distraction Caroline needs, but when she discovers a link between the vial and London's long unsolved apothecary murders, Caroline's upended present soon collides with an explosive history, binding her fate to Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist that transcends the barriers of time. This is fantastic. Definitely probably my favorite read of the year. This book is great. This was also a finalist last year. It's a cheesy romance book, 100%. If you're not into cheesy romance, this probably isn't for you. I won't even get into the summary because it's kind of cheesy, but basically she's a student, like a PhD student, and he's a professor, but he's pretty young, and circumstances come into play where they have to pretend to date each other, and you don't always know where that leads, but it's pretty interesting. A lot of twists and turns to it. My thoughts on it is I think the storyline is realistic, and it's a pretty spicy book. It's a good read if you like rom-coms, but there are a couple times where they kind of have like funny, awkward things happen that force them to interact and act like a couple, but some of them I feel like the girl acts a little bit childish. Oh my gosh, like, do I go stand by him? Do I not? That part's a little for me, but it's not too much of the book. It's maybe 2 scenes that I'm just like, this isn't realistic. Like, she's not acting like she's 25. Other than that, I think it's a great read. I probably would reread it again just because I thought it was pretty entertaining. This next book, I disliked this book so much. It's very much preference that I dislike this book, but the reason is because this is, I'm not gonna spoil it, but this is based off of Peter Pan, like a modern day spin-off, and the storyline is interesting. But the reason I don't like this is because it basically ruins the story of Peter Pan. It's very dark. It's honestly disgusting. The things that they imply in this book, it's very sad. Like, every aspect of it has to have a very depressing part to it, very controversial things in it. Apparently all of the Disney stuff, or at least Peter Pan, originally started as a dark storyline, and then like Disney bought it and made it all light and whatever, but no hate to the author. They actually are a good writer. The writing of the book is really good, and I mean, I was able to sit through it and read it. It's just like, I don't like to think of things this way. I'm a little concerned that they had the desire to take a kid's thing and just make it like, I'll never enjoy the Peter Pan franchise, let me just say that. I'm very confused too how legally they can write those things, because it very much takes away from the Peter Pan realm versus supports it. So I don't know, but I'm moving on from that one. The Blinds. This was cool. This was very different than what I normally read. I picked it because it's based in Texas. Imagine a place populated by criminals, people plucked from their lives with their memories altered, who've been granted new identities and a second chance. Welcome to The Blinds, a dusty town in rural Texas populated by misfits who don't know if they perpetrated a crime or just witnessed one. What's clear to them is that if they leave, they will end up dead. For 8 years, Sheriff Calvin Cooper has kept an uneasy peace, but after a suicide and a murder in quick succession, the town's residents revolt. Cooper has his own secrets to protect, so when his new deputy starts digging, he needs to keep one step ahead of her and the mysterious outsiders who are threatening to tear the whole place down. The more Cooper learns, the more the hard truth is revealed. The Blinds is no sleepy hideaway. It's simmering with violence and deception, aching heartbreak, and dark betrayals. Read this. Read this book. It is really, really good. Another cheesy romance book, The Bodyguard. I mean, just the name alone sounds like it could be a rom-com movie. I really like this. Again, another Texas book. Hannah Brooks looks more like a kindergarten teacher than somebody who could kill you with a corkscrew or a ballpoint pen or a dinner napkin, but the truth is she's an executive protective agent, aka bodyguard. And she just got hired to protect superstar Jack Stapleton from his middle-aged corgi breeding stalker. When Jack's mom gets sick, he goes home to the family's Texas ranch to help out. Only one catch, he doesn't want his family to know about his stalker or the bodyguard, and so Hannah, against her will and better judgment, finds herself pretending to be Jack's girlfriend as a cover, even though her ex says no one will believe it. Hannah hardly believes it herself, but the more time she spends with Jack, the more real it all starts to seem, and therein lies the heartbreak, because it's easy for Hannah to protect Jack, but protecting her own long neglected heart, that's the hardest thing she's ever done. It's pretty good though, but I mean, It's very much like a rom-com. You kind of expect a lot that happens in the show. In the book, there is a good surprise ending, like twist at the end, so that's at least worth it. I'm kind of jumping around. This isn't the order that I read these books, but The Ex-Hex, I read this last year and I reread it this year. This is the book I got for October of 21, and it's what launched me having the Book of the Month subscription, and I haven't regretted it. I reread this because a new one came out this year, and so I reread this one. It is as cheesy Halloween as it can get, and that's exactly what I want for October. And for December, I want like cheesy for the holiday books, and then I do more of my normal reads the other months. Never mixed vodka and witchcraft. 9 years ago, Vivian Jones nursed her broken heart like any young witch would. Vodka, weepy music, bubble baths, and a curse on the horrible boyfriend. Sure, Vivi knows she shouldn't use her magic this way, but with only an orchard hayride scented candle on hand, she isn't worried it will cause him anything more than a bad hair day or two. This is until Reese Penhallow, descendant of the town's ancestors, breaker of hearts and annoyingly just as gorgeous as he always was, returns to Graves Glen, Georgia, which should be a quick trip to recharge the town's ley lines and make an appearance of the annual fall fair, turns disastrously wrong with one calamity after another striking Reese. Vivi realizes her silly little ex-hex may not have been so harmless after all. Suddenly, Graves Glen is under attack from murderous wind-up toys, a pissed-off ghost, and a talking cat with some interesting things to say. Vivi and Reese have to ignore off-the-charts chemistry to work together to save the town and find the way to break the breakup curse before it's too late. This is a really cool read. Although it's kitschy and cheesy, it's very spicy, very much like focuses on the Wales origin of witchcraft, which I thought was kind of cool that they sprinkled that in there. Her cousin in the book is named Guinevere, and then she shortens it to Gwyn, which is Gwyn, which my name is Gwyneth, short is Gwyn for Gwyn, so I really liked that. And then this year they had the second book to the series, and the focuses on the cousin. This whole storyline's about Guinevere, which I really like. Aside from her going by Gwyn, she also drove an old Volvo, which that was my first car when I was 16. I drove an old Volvo. And then she's a Taurus zodiac sign, and I'm also a Taurus zodiac sign. And they may have said her favorite color is green, which is also my favorite color. So maybe there's some alignment there. So for this one, it says Gwyn Jones is perfectly happy with her life in Graves Glen. She, her mom, and her cousin have formed a new and powerful coven. She's running a successful witchcraft shop, Something Wicked, and she started mentoring some of the young witches in town. As Halloween approaches, there's only one problem. Llewellyn Wells Penhallow has come to Graves Glen to reestablish his family's connection to the town they founded and to make a new life for himself after years of being the dutiful son in Wales. When he opens up a shop of his own, Penhallow's just across the street from Something Wicked, he quickly learns he's gotten more than he bargained for in going up against Gwyn. When her professional competition leads to a very personal and very hot kiss, both Wells and Gwyn are determined to stay away from each other, convinced the kiss was just a magical fluke. But when a mysterious new coven of witches comes to town and Gwyn's powers begin fading, she and Wells must work together to figure out what these new witches want and how to restore Gwyn's magic before it's too late. Very cool. I like it. Again, cheesy read. Then my actual October book of the month is this book called Sign Here. This book comes off as very kitschy for Halloween as well, which is fun, but there's actually a very interesting dark twist to this. So like reading the summary, it says Peyote Trip has a, that's his name, Peyote Trip. Peyote Trip has a pretty good gig in the deals department of the 5th floor of hell. Sure, none of the pens work, the coffee machine has been out of order for a century, and the only drink on offer is Jägermeister. But Pei has a plan, and all he needs is one last member of the Harrison family to sell their soul. When the Harrisons retreat to the family lake house for the summer with their daughter Mickey's precocious new friend Ruth in tow, the opportunity Pei has waited a millennial for might finally be in his grasp, and with the help of his charismatic coworker Calamity, he sets a plan in motion. But things aren't always as they seem on Earth or Hell, and as old secrets and new dangers scrape away at the Harrison shiny surface, revealing the darkness beneath, everyone must face the consequences of their choices. Portrays this like quirky, like funny side to hell, which it is kind of interesting the way they describe it in the book, but then there's actually some like dark real life stuff that is in this book that makes it a really good read. I mean, it is a little darker than I usually like to read, but the concept of it is really cool, and I think although it's kind of a heavy read, I think it kind of reflect on choices you make in your own life, so I think this is good. Head Over Heels. This is a romance book. that has to do with the Olympics. I will say though, the summary is very different from the book. So the summary is the past 7 years have been hard on Avery Abrams. After training her entire life to make the Olympic gymnastics team, a disastrous performance ended her athletic career for good. Her best friend and teammate Jasmine went on to become an Olympic champion, then committed the ultimate betrayal by marrying their coach Dimitri. Now reeling from a breakup with her football star boyfriend, Avery returns to her Massachusetts hometown where her old acquaintance Ryan, now a coach, asked her to help him train Haley, a promising young gymnast with Olympic aspirations. Back in the gym for the first time in years, she's surprised not only by Haley's talent but also by the sparks flying with Ryan. But when a shocking scandal on the gymnastics world breaks, it has shattering consequences for the sport. Avery isn't sure her romance can survive it. Yeah, this is a great read. It's very much written as, you know, it talks about the Olympics and the summary suggests a lot about the romance, but I feel like the romance is almost like a beeline story. There's a lot that's in here that's just really cool about athletes in general and the Olympics and kind of what they mentally go through for this. There's really cool stuff about her just kind of finding herself and her footing, a lot of issues that people don't really talk about. It's cool. There's so much going on than just romance. So if you're someone who like kind of likes a little romance but you don't want like a full-on cheesy romance book, this is great. Like if you need a little bit more story and realness to a romance book, this is for you for sure. This, I'll say the same thing. This is the most misleading from the summary, let me tell you. Summary is when the violinist Anna's son accidentally achieves career success with a viral YouTube video, she finds herself burned out from her attempts to replicate the moment. And when her longtime boyfriend announces that he wants an open relationship before making a final commitment, a hurt and angry Anna decides if he wants an open relationship, then she does too. Translation, she's going to embark on a string of one-night stands. The more unacceptable the men, the better. That's where tattooed motorcycle riding Quan. Their first attempt at a one-night stand fails, as is their second and third, because being with Quan is more than sex. He accepts Anna on an unconditional level that she herself has just begun to understand. However, when tragedy strikes Anna's family, she takes on a role that she is ill-suited for until the burden of expectations threatens to destroy her. Anna and Quan have to fight for their chance at love, but to do that, they also have to fight for themselves. This is a very dark but real book. Like, thinking about it right now kind of chokes me up because there is a lot of sad, real life stuff in here. It deals with family dynamics, it deals with people pleasing and masking and kind of finding your own voice. It deals with mental health struggles. And I'm not gonna ruin the ending, but the ending was very different than I was expecting than the romance book that this kind of laid it out to be. But seeing kind of what people they are themselves and their families and society made me have so much more appreciation and understanding for just people who are different and have a different path and maybe not be doing things just like as traditional as everyone else. I just, like, this was such an eye-opening book. I really encourage people to read it. I know the cover and kind of the summary seem a little misleading. I wouldn't put this as the cover for this book, but yeah, definitely check that out. Oh, I talked about reading Harry Potter some more. I think last year, I had to go back and watch this video I made last year because I couldn't remember where I left off with Harry Potter last year. I guess I got all the way through the 3rd book last year. This year I did read the 4th book. One thing with me for reading is it's always my goal every month to for sure read my book of the month that I select, and then I try to read an additional book with that. It takes longer for me to get through my stack of other books because, you know, a new book is coming in each month for me to add to the pile to read. Jump to like middle of the year, I finally got back to Harry Potter, read this 4th book. It was great, very, very good. As I progressed through the books, they definitely have way more detailed than the movies, and they're very great. I love both the movies and the books. Another book I read earlier in the year is You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. This was really good. My sister got me one that I've been meaning to read. It's in my to read pile, but it's You Are a Badass at Making Money. I'm not gonna give away all her secrets, but she's very gifted at writing and she has a lot of interesting outlooks, but the main takeaway is just like you think people are gonna judge you or notice your failures way more than you do, and it keeps you from really reaching your full potential and just really getting in the right headspace for things. I think going into the new year, I will reread this just because it's a great reminder. I almost can't like soak in all of the great advice and quotes and, you know, anecdotes that she puts in there, so it may need a second read from me. Oh, the next thing I read, because everyone was talking about this book, was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Over 2 million copies sold. This is great. This book is based off of, apparently, allegedly, Elizabeth Taylor, I think, which really makes me want to learn more about Elizabeth Taylor. But this book is really good. It just says reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more stunned than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course the 7 husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in a tragic and irreversible way. Written with Reed's signature talent for creating complex, likable characters, this is a memorizing journey through the splendor of old Hollywood into the sobering realities of present day as 2 women struggle with what it means and what it costs to face the truth. Highly recommend. It's not at all what I was expecting for any portion of the book, but it's very, very, very entertaining. And it also kind of gives you a different outlook on just like celebrities in general. The Midnight Library. I talked about this last year because I was like 40 pages in and I didn't care for it. I don't even know when I read it this year, but I finally got back to it and read it. It is better than I thought it would be. I do appreciate the book and finally reading it. It was just a little too negative for me in the beginning of the book. Ended up being a good read. I do recommend it. Between life and death, there is a library. Up until now, Nora Seed's life has been full of misery and regret. She feels she has let everyone down, including herself, but things are about to change. When she finds herself in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to make things right. The books in the Midnight Library enable Nora to live as if she had done things differently. Each one contains a different life, a possible world in which she made different choices that played out in an infinite number of ways, affecting everyone she knew as well as many people she never met. With the help of an old friend, she can now undo every decision she regrets as she tries to work out her perfect life, but things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and soon her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question: what is the best way to live? Alright, and then the last book that I read is The Office BFFs. I really just got this because I listened to the podcast. I love The Office. I really wanted to support the show. I think the coolest part is photos that they put in here. They have a ton of photos they took throughout the series. So I thought it was pretty cool. This is pretty similar to their podcast, although there are a handful of stories that aren't told in the podcast that you get exclusively from this book. So that's pretty cool. I also love the female empowerment of this book. They talk a lot about their journeys to becoming successful. It's also really cool, just the feminist side of this, them talking about all the amazing influential women that they worked with, as well as them juggling being moms while working. The books I'm currently in the process of reading, I am halfway through Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and then my Christmas book that I'm reading is called Kiss Her Once for Me. 1 year ago, recent Portland transplant Ellie Oliver had her dream job in animation in a Christmas Eve bookstore meet cute with a woman she fell in love with over the course of a single night, but after a betrayal the next morning and the loss of her job soon after, she finds herself adrift, alone, and desperate for money. Since finding work at a local coffee shop, she's just getting through the days until Andrew, the shop's landlord, proposes a shocking drunken plan, a marriage of convenience that will give him his recent inheritance and alleviate Ellie's financial woes and isolation. They decide to spend the holidays together at his family's cabin to keep up the ruse, but when Andrew introduces his new fiance to his sister, Ellie is shocked to discover that his sister is Jack, the mysterious woman she fell for last Christmas Eve. Now, over one very festive week, Ellie must choose between the safety of a fake relationship and the risk of something real. The book is set for Christmas of 2022. Actually, the book starts today, the day I'm reading it. The first date that's listed is December 13th of 2022, and then there's 4 chapters of that, and then there's 2 chapters on the 14th, 2 chapters on December 15th. So what I'm doing is I'm reading the book along with the dates. So I'm kind of slow to read this book just because it's only 2 or 3 chapters a day. So I have another book running in the background, and that is Killers of a Certain Age. They have spent their lives as the deadliest assassins in a clandestine international organization, but now that they're 60-year-olds, 4 female friends can't just retire. It's kill or be killed in this action-packed thriller. Billy, Mary Alice, Helen, and Natalie have worked for the museum an elite network of assassins for 40 years. Now their talents are considered old school and no one appreciates what they have to offer in an age that relies more on technology than people skills. When the foursome is sent on a all-expense paid vacation to mark their retirement, they are targeted by one of their own. Only the board, the top level member of the museum, can order the termination of field agents, and the women realize they've been marked for death. Now to get out alive, they have to turn against their own organization, relying on experience and one other to get the job done. Knowing that working together is the secret to their survival, they're about to teach the board what it really means to be a woman and a killer of a certain age. I'm like 50 or 60 pages into this. Seems pretty good. Okay, this has gotten very long, much longer than last year because I read more than last year. Next portion is talking about what I am hoping to read in 2023. I'm not gonna read you all the summaries or we'll be here forever, but here's a portion of the stack of books that I still have on my to read. This is Love on the Brain. This is the same person who wrote The Love Hypothesis, so that's why I picked this up. I got this at Half Price Books. It was my first time going there and I just felt like I had to buy a book. Had to mark my first experience, so yeah, The Wedding Ringer. Okay, I'm about to get some judgment. Don't judge, guys, but I got the story of Lex and Livia, Rebels City of Indra. This is by Kendall and Kylie Jenner, and I was rewatching the series and it was over the part, this was like, I don't know, 2017 maybe, they came out with this book and I was like, that's actually kind of interesting. It's like a sci-fi book. So I thought I'd read it, and then when I went to look this up, apparently they came out with a sequel to the book. There's either 2 books total or 3, but one just came out in like 2020 or 2021. So I thought I'd take a pass at reading this. It's at least something different that the Kardashians / Jenners are doing. So, I mean, I definitely think someone else wrote the book, but they like are supposed to be the characters of Lex and Livia, and I think they like helped with the general storyline, but they weren't the ones like typing up the book, if you know what I mean. But I can appreciate the little bit of creativity that they put into it. This book, Malibu Rising, everyone has been talking about this book, and this is the same author who wrote The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and yep, same author. And then people say that somehow this storyline of this book like intersects with the storyline of the Evelyn Hugo book. So we shall see. Everyone says it's like the perfect summer read though, and I didn't buy it till like August or September. And then I got wrapped up in other books, so part of me is wondering, like, do I save it more for summer vibes so I can enjoy it in appropriate time? I mentioned this one already, You Are a Badass at Making Money. I want to read this. I won't get into much into my goals, but I will be posting a 2023 goals, and one of mine is really to get more growth with finance. I'm pretty good with like budgeting finance-wise, but really tapping into potential of making more money and growing all of my social media platforms. I think this would just be great to get me in the right headspace for that. Everything We Didn't Say. This is a thriller book about someone being murdered in the house next door, and I think her brother is accused of doing it, maybe wrongfully accused, and she's trying to solve it. This book is called Cast. We actually had a speaker come into one of my business classes, and we were just talking about diversity in general and inclusivity. He recommended this book and some other books too I have on my like wish list on Amazon. And this one seemed really cool. Explores through an immersive, deeply researched narrative and stories about real people, how America today and throughout history has been shaped by a hidden caste system. Oh, it's Oprah's Book Club 2022. 2020. The Paris apartment, this I impulse added as an add-on for book of the month, 1 month. This is cool. She like goes to see her brother in Paris, so when she gets there, the apartment's empty and she can't find her brother, and she has to go through a series of like asking everyone else and trying to track him down, and she's like not, you know, I don't know if she speaks French, but she's definitely not native to Paris, so. And then the last book that's been added to my to read pile is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. When you've been in book of the month for 12 months, you become a BFF and you get a bunch of perks. So like the month of your birthday, you get an extra book, access to a bunch of merch, and then also book of the year finalists. So people voted and there were 4 or 5 books that were designated as the best of the year, and then as being a BFF, then I got to pick which one of those 5 that I wanted to have. One of the books was actually one that I already read. It may have been The Love Hypothesis. So this is my to read pile going into 2023. All right, guys, I have talked so much. I'm hoping I can edit this down to where it's not super long and boring for you guys, but I would love to know what's your favorite book that you have read this year, or what books you would like to read. Also, are you involved in Book of the Month? I think it's a great service. I really enjoy it. For Christmas last year, I gifted my mom a subscription for a few months and she really enjoyed it as well. I think that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I also hope you like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.
So Emma and her boyfriend are fighting in the front seat while mom's chilling in the back. Is chilling in the back while a guy she just met is driving her vehicle and whipping over into a gas station to get some cigarettes. And then Emma and him start fighting, and Emma gets out of the car, and Mom told me that you're walking.
I walked like half a block.
And he's now Emma. So imagine this: Emma gets out and is walking. Mom is stuck in the car with this guy who she barely knows, who now Mom thinks is a lying pervert.